Hey, it's Eric Hulkern, and welcome to another Michigan's Best podcast as we celebrate Black History Month, brought to you by McDonald's. In this episode, it's Jamiel Robinson. He is the founder of GRABB and an incredible human who tells this amazing story about what he started in Grand Rapids and where he's going. I hope you love this podcast as much as I loved this conversation. And as I said, my guest today is founder of GRABB, the Grand Rapids area Black businesses, Jamiel Robinson. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Can actually be better. I'm on this side of the ground.
I feel like I don't know you very well, but I feel like you strive to be a little bit better than just above the ground.
I do, but as long as I'm on top of it, it's still work that can be done. There's still progress that can be made. So, we're going to keep on striving to be our better selves and help the community out as much as possible. So really excited, man. I'm excited to dive in. I checked out some of your interviews from last year, so I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, Jamiel, we're celebrating Black History Month as we do every year with McDonald's, and you are high on our list, so it's an honor for me to spend a couple minutes talking with you. And I want to start with GRABB because people may or may not know you have your hands in a number of entities in Grand Rapids. And I mean that as the highest compliment, and I want to set the stage a little bit. I was the program director of WSNX from about 1999 till I left in 2014. And in an earlier interview, you referenced the fact that in the early aughts, the equity in Grand Rapids certainly was not there. And I can attest, as a top 40 radio station that leaned heavily into hip hop and hip hop culture, we also felt that in the early aughts, that equity wasn't really there. But in 2012, you create GRABB. And so can you take me from maybe a couple moments before that?
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in the city of Grand Rapids, a family of business owners, property owners. And so I've always been around those who own their own business and always wanted to own my own business. And so at the age of 24, I started a nonprofit organization working at the high school that I graduated from, which is Ottawa Hill High School here in the city of Grand Rapids.
Actually, it's the Ottawa Hills High School.
Yeah, like some people, we call it the O. So, it's the O and then it's every other high school. So we can claim a lot of titles, not only just in sports, but just, alumni who went on to do great things, even former U.S. Attorney Pat Miles down to, Bishop Marvin Sapp. So, we have, and even Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Absolutely. Sorry, go on.
No, so I started a nonprofit, and so we were working with high school kids, mentoring, helping them get prepared for that next level of life. We feel, and I still feel today, is that so much of your life is dictated by how well you do in high school, and it's not even necessarily just academically well, but it's how are you being shaped as a future adult or a person that's heading into adulthood. And so we work with students, and so we started off doing that really well. Part of my failure lab was just talking about, we actually, started off and was doing extremely well. We're helping a lot of students. We had one student go from a 1.9 GPA to a 3.9 GPA in 1 year. But being young, not necessarily knowing how to structure an organization, once we really took off, that meant more work. And so with us not being properly structured, it just became, more of a burden than it was, even though we were helping a lot of students, we're managing all facets of that. And so I decided to walk away from that organization. And then I took a job with the YMCA in the area as a director. And so that was that kind of period. So I knew that, so I looked at the Y as one, it's a national organization. They run their organization really well. They're structured really well. So I looked at it as opportunity for a respite, as well as to skill up and tool up when it comes to managing, larger organizations. So the YMCA Grand Rapids is a multi-million dollar organization. And so when I went there, I operated nearly $1 million budget myself. And so being able to have that experience helped set it up. And so it's kind of funny, which, at the time I wouldn't have said, but now I went into the YMCA knowing I was getting ready to start something else. So just more of that respite. And so I took the position, I think 2000, 10, but then I didn't go into the position until January 2011 because nobody works like the last month of
Sure.
the year.
Yeah.
And so they say, hey, we hired you end of November, but we don't have anybody to onboard you because everybody's taking vacation. So you can just start the first week of January. So I started in 2011, and then I began that march towards creating GRABB in 2012. So I really started some of those foundational and like formulaic moments and months in 2011 before officially starting in 2012.
And so, for people who may not be familiar, can you give me the elevator pitch of what GRABB is and what it has been doing, both before COVID and then now currently during COVID?
Yeah, so GRABB, so we're an economic development and business development organization. Our mission is to help businesses launch, survive, sustain, and scale. So that's the continuum and trajectory we like to assist Black businesses here in the city of Grand Rapids and even across the region, because we do work not only in Grand Rapids, but across the state in different communities such as like Kalamazoo, Otter Creek, Muskegon Heights, Lansing, and then the east side of the state, doing some things over there in Detroit, in the Detroit area. And so what we really like to do is just assist businesses in that next level. How do we remove as many barriers that prevents them from growing, not only just in revenue size, but also expanding as a company to bring on more people as a way to target and eliminate some of those inequities when it comes to like the quality of life. So Grand Rapids was ranked the second worst city economically for Black people by Forbes back in 2015. Even though being indigenous to the city of Grand Rapids, we knew that these inequities existed, but for a major publication to put a spotlight on that, because before then, Grand Rapids is, best city for, families, best city, fastest growing, third fastest growing economy of a city its size and all these things. And then it was like, but it's the second worst place in the entire country for African Americans economically, based upon home ownership rate, self-employment, which is entrepreneurship, and then median income. So that's what we're working to tackle, at GRABB. And so prior to COVID, we're doing that. But since the onset of COVID, we switched into how can we help as many Black businesses survive, especially with them being shut out of a lot of the relief early on, as far as when the rollout of PPP and all these other kind of relief efforts out of all of the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, 5% of all the funding went to Black-owned businesses. 5%.
Wow.
Of hundreds of billions of dollars. 5%. Yeah, and so when we look at that's kind of follows the same trajectory when it comes to regular access to capital. And so we work to alleviate those things. So whether it's us contacting a banking partner, so on and so forth, to be able to do that. And then we end up being able to raise a fund ourselves of $100,000 to where we're able to assist and provide some relief for Black businesses here in the city of Grand Rapids.
And that's the relief. That's the Relief and Resilience Fund.
That's the Relief and Resilience Fund, in addition to the BIPOC grant that we did in partnership with Flagstar Bank. So the Relief and Resilience Fund, we received dollars from NBC Universal Comcast that allowed us to do some granting, some re-granting of dollars to Black businesses. And then we also partnered with Flagstar Bank, and we're able to re-grant some dollars to Black-owned businesses as well.
So, as I said early on, you've got your hands in a lot of things in Grand Rapids, and I want to shift gears very quickly because one of the things that has fascinated me about watching you and watching you work, especially with Jonathan Jelks, is the Motu Viget, right?
Yes.
This is a segment of the world that a lot of people try and step into, and very few, very few get as popular as you guys have with Motu Viget. So, can you talk to me about when you two decided that this is the thing that we're doing and how it became this zeitgeist, this spirit of the day, because it went from 0 to 100 seemingly overnight. And I hate using overnight success because it eliminates all of the work and the struggle before the product shows up on a Meijer shelf. But I do want to celebrate the fact that, at least from a consumer perspective, this thing went pretty fast.
It definitely grew a lot faster, than even we anticipated. So how we end up coming into this. So it's myself, Jonathan Jelks, and our partner Willie Jackson, Willie the Kid. He's international. Yeah, Willie the Kid. He's international.
He was on this podcast 3 years ago. So he and I have been friends for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's the three of us, and we also have a partner as well as a Super Dre. So
Yep,
I'm pretty
absolutely.
familiar with Super Dre as well. And so we were approached, by St. Julian. So we partner with St. Julian. So Motu Viget Spirits, we're a wine and spirits company, and we have a couple of products out right now. So one of which is Motu Viget, our brewed champagne, and we do that in partnership with St. Julian from that standpoint. And so we were already in the process of opening Ambiance GR, which is a lounge entertainment venue. We're looking to hopefully open up as soon as COVID
right.
gets his foot off everyone's neck. And so one of the execs over at St. Julian had invited us down, from that standpoint and saying, hey, you guys are getting ready to open up, Ambiance. We love all the marketing. We see how you guys are going at, what would you guys think about owning your own, spirits company and partnering with us, for the rollout and things like that. And so up until then, we were just like laser focused on everything we have respectively, but also a lot of our energy going towards Ambiance. And so, we took about a month to be able to go through, check out what the industry is like, kick the tires, so on and so forth. And, so going in, our bar was like, we'll have Ambiance, and we'll be able to sell our own champagne out of Ambiance. And so, but from there, we have a lot of relationships, across the state and, across this nation, through, Willie the Kid, but then also a lot of our own business endeavors. And so, it just really took off. So, we had a marketing plan and a strategy, and, that product really took off. And then it led to us rolling out a second product, which is our Avani Supreme Vodka that we do in partnership with Long Road Distillers here in the city of Grand Rapids. So it really just took off. And then with Meyer, we had relationships with Myers and the different purchasers. And so we were supposed to go into Myers, but COVID happened. So another thing, we're supposed to be in Meyer earlier this year throughout the region, but COVID slowed that up until we just recently, last fall, were able to, get our product placed in over 60 locations across the state of Michigan. And we're looking to be able to roll that out Midwest. But it's available online to order anywhere in the country. So you can order it whether you're in California, Florida, New York, and everything in between.
It's an amazing story. The other thing I want to talk about when we're talking about COVID, though, is the disproportionate way, and you alluded to this earlier, but the disproportionate way in which COVID has affected Black-owned businesses. And I'm wondering if I could get your perspective on some of the things in specificity that you guys are doing, not only the relief fund, but you were talking earlier, I should say late 2020, but earlier in some earlier interviews, about some of the actual tactics and things that you're teaching so that these businesses can pivot as best they can for what is the foreseeable future at this point. We don't know when things will open up. We don't know when, as you said earlier, the regulations will come up or come down. And so a business has to be very nimble. And that's not a skill set really many small businesses have as a core competency, but it feels like, and I'm sure data will support, it affects Black-owned businesses disproportionately, I should say, as it does to white-owned businesses.
Yeah, definitely. Early on, reports came out that nearly 40% of all Black businesses across this country had to close due to COVID. Some were able to open up their doors, but a lot weren't able to open up their doors, so they're permanently closed. And so the biggest thing that we've done is help them to pivot and create a more robust, online, kind of digital storefront, as well as helping them create a more robust e-commerce from that standpoint. We're all of us as consumers have to shift our behaviors even more so towards the e-commerce, the online shopping of sorts. And so, a lot of our Black businesses, either they have a very small web presence, whether it's social media or even their website. And a lot of times it's not integrated well to where it allows for customers to be able to shop, effectively or efficiently. And so it's a lot of times, even myself personally, if I have to click 15 or so times, I'm just like, man, and I'm just done. It's too complicated to just buy. And so, so we're trying to help them decrease what they call abandoned, carts, which is on websites. So if you put a bunch of stuff, we've all done that on some of the more larger websites where we'll click on some things and then we'll get busy and walk away. And then the next time you visit that website, it says you should have something in your cart. And so we help businesses pivot in that way. But also just even looking at, how they market. So we have a Shift Summit, what we do every year, which is focused on entrepreneurship in the community. And so we had heavy on the digital. So not only talking about their web presence, but also their social media. So how are they utilizing social media to, for as a customer acquisition strategy and from that standpoint. So it's a lot more focused on what can you do given the lemons that you've been handed. And so we hope to help them create as much lemonade, as possible. Even if it's not the most tastiest of lemonades, it's still drinkable, which means that we help these business kind of ink through until we're able to kind of be back to whatever, as they quote unquote say, the new normal is. And so we're just really focused on their survival and getting them through so that they can see the fruits of all their labor and see that rebound, that resilience, that rebound that comes through. And that's why we're excited about our headquarters that we're developing now.
Absolutely. I love the analogy too, by the way. So early in 2021, you tweeted that by 2022, you will own a business valued at $10 million.
Yes.
And so my question to you is, knowing what I know about you, I don't doubt that statement is true, but I actually want to get into the mindset of how you lay the bricks to make that happen, right? So if somebody's listening to this and they want to get inspired and figure out how to start their own business or get a piece of another business or join an organization that's in growth mode, when you go about the process of, and I know you're not just putting that onto Flex, you're sharing that because you want the ownership, I would imagine, to put that out there and say, if in 12 months this hasn't come true, I want somebody to call me on that. And so,
we actually got 24 months. I didn't say January 1st, 2022.
Fair.
That's the gray area.
But what does Jamiel do day in and day out to lay the bricks to make that happen in 23 and a half months or so?
It's really, I've have a lot of friends that owns a few different companies. And so before COVID, I was actually in the process of evaluating the deal, whether or not I wanted to purchase a company, that had revenues of, a little bit over $1 million. And so I went to a friend of mine who owns a manufacturing company. And I was telling him about, hey, I'm kicking the tires on this. And he really told me that it is really no difference between a $1 million company or operating a $1 million company as it is in operating a $10 million company. He said the biggest difference is with that $10 million company, you have a little bit more margin to make mistakes and learn from. Whereas the $1 million, you have to, manage every penny, which you got to do at any company, but, you have less of a margin for error from that standpoint. Because personally, I felt I can manage $1 million company. I managed nearly $1 million budget. So I will be able to manage. So, looking at my own capacity and what I felt, and, for this person to tell me that you could do a 10 million, and that was in like 2019. And so when I'm looking at how do I get to a position is really just understanding more of the mechanics of acquisitions and mergers. And so it's a lot of self-education, but it's also the network of individuals that I surround myself with, whether they are, got companies where they're doing $500 million a year down to, our own personal companies and businesses that I work with. And so really starting to understand and learn more of the mechanics of deal making, but also being in proximity to opportunity. And so I think a lot of times the biggest secret or the sauce is really just proximity. So it's like if you were hanging out, in Steve Jobs' garage, like what does your life look like now? And so it's the proximity to opportunity. And so the networks that I've been able to establish in the relationships put me in the vicinity of being able to come across an opportunity to be majority owner of a company that has that's valued at $10 million. So a company being valued at $10 million and what you purchase that company for is two different things. And so I'm not saying that I'm about to put 10 million in cash and go buy it, but but what is being sold for and the value of that company is two different things. And so even understanding the difference between that, that's been just more of education from the informal side. And then also just, the networks and the folks that I'm around. And so even though I hate to kind of even leverage, use that, but it's true. If you hang around millionaires, eventually one day you'll be a millionaire. And that just speaks to the network and information. It's some of those unwritten rules and unwritten knowledge that is just shared, from person to person, in an intangible way that you can manifest into the real world.
Well, I will say this to you, my friend, that you and your network have done incredible work in West Michigan. And for people who may not be on the west side of the state, what you guys have done is just absolutely incredible. So the question I want to ask you to kind of wrap this up today is, GRABB starts in 2012. We are now entering the 9th year of the work that you've been doing. It's obviously not the ideal year. You've already alluded to the fact that it's lemons, but I'm interested in the grade you would give Grand Rapids as it moves closer to where you would like it to be. So if, let's say in 2012, what grade would you give it, and what do you give it in 2021, including what's going on with COVID?
I think Grand Rapids hasn't, moved that much, to be tangible, to have a tangible grade. Is because when you still look at the actual economics, when you look at the actual indicators of success, the needle hasn't moved, or if it did move, it was a temporary spike. And so we have to get to a point where it's sustained. And so the thing that I will, say commend will be the fact that it's more focus, and at least the rhetoric is there, but we like for it to move beyond rhetoric into tangible investments. And so when you look at, people look at a budget as a financial document, it's definitely a financial document, but it's also a values and it's a morals document. And so you can't, loudly, say that you're for equity and everything that occurred last summer, and that was due to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, who was born and raised in the city of Grand Rapids. You can't have just corporations doing window dressing and releasing these social equity statements as a way to be just like, oh, don't, or we're on your side from that standpoint. And so GRABB has made progress. A lot of the work that I've done, a lot of the work that those around have done has set a good foundation for the growth that is needed in order for the communities to move forward. So, Grand Rapids has to go from the second worst place for African Americans to the second best, if not the best place for African Americans. That's when we'll see growth. And so even since the 2015 article, Grand Rapids actually has slipped as far as its position. So if we were to be reevaluated today, it could be potentially the worst city, economically. And so the work that we're doing, we're in the process of building out a headquarters on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. That will be the epicenter for entrepreneurship and innovation. And so we're really excited about that, being able to be open late summer of this year to serve as not only a beacon, but also a place where we can bring resources to help leverage these companies into a stronger position. Because that's when you really start getting down to it. It's truly about, are you raising the quality of life for families that have been historically marginalized? And that's the work that we're really looking to do. We're really looking to help these families, these companies build generational wealth as a way for them to own and control and also dictate their future in the city of Grand Rapids while adding to the vibrancy of Grand Rapids. So it's definitely they get a room for improvement. Or what's that credit that you get in college?
Yes.
You just get credit. So it's not an A, not a B, but you get credit. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Absolutely.
But I'm definitely hopeful with not only just the work that I'm doing, but the work of other friends and allies here in the city of Grand Rapids and West Michigan as well.
Jamiel Robinson, founder of GRABB. You can get him online at grabblocal.com with 2 B's. My friend, this has been an absolute joy. And like I said, the work that you're doing in West Michigan is so important and so incredible. Keep doing what you do, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.